Yo,
Hello,
good
hello,
day, and
hello.
welcome to another episode of Road FS Detail Memoirs. We are in the ring today, getting ready to do round 10 with Barry Theal of SB3 Coating. I'm Jody.
And I'm Rod Pusey. So this has been something we wanted to do for a long time. You know, we've been around Barry. I think the first time Jody and I were talking about the first time we met, he was like 2008 or 2009. And
I think we all had our normal hair color back then.
we did have, I actually had hair back then. That was
Oh man,
Rod's going like, what's hair?
yeah,
so overrated.
it's it's bad, man. Like I woke up one time with like one hair here that was gray, and a hair here and a hair here, about 3 years ago, and now it's like I can't even count the brown ones anymore. You know?
Yeah. You snap your fingers and it's Santa Claus. So one of the things that's nice about being as old as we are is that we've been in and around the industry a long time. So I'm really curious to hear your story, because in 2008 and 9 there was no SB3 coatings. Nobody even knew what ceramic coatings were. So kind of go through how you got to where you're at.
Oh man, it's a long story. I've been around. I hate to say it, but I've been around a little bit now. You know. Um, I'm not quite as young as I used to be. Things don't work the way they should on my body, but I've been fortunate. I had a very amazing career in detailing, and it's something that I never ever thought I would do. As a younger person, I was never a car guy. For me, I fell in love with the industry, is what happened. I fell in love with the actual doing the work, understanding the process, meeting the people, the before and the afters, and it always gave me like a sense of comfort when I detailed a car. It was never about what I could do to the car. It was what the car and the process did for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely makes sense.
I was young. I think I was 15. It was 1993 when I got my first job as a detailer. I grew up in a town called Manheim, Pennsylvania, where we had Manheim Auto Auction. And if
Yeah.
you've ever like been there, the whole town is built around the auto auction. You know, so there were at that time I think 50 or 60 detail shops within a 2 mile radius,
Wow.
Yep.
and they were all doing 100 to 600 cars a week at the time for the auction. Body shops, detail shops, paintless dent repair was just getting big, all that stuff. So me, I just happened to apply for a job. I was young. I worked at a roller rink in the wintertime. I was that floor guard that went around and whistled and yelled at everybody. Uh, one of the one of the funny things about me is I was actually a really good roller skater back in the day, which most people don't really know. But I found a job, and the very first night, I'll never forget this. It was a white Toyota Corolla, and back then the wheels didn't have the wheel well linings, the plastic linings. They were all metal.
Right.
You had your struts and everything. Long story short, they always said paint them all black. And I was working in a volume shop, and when we would paint them black, it would hide everything, and it looked good for the sale. Probably not today's proper detailing, but that's how it was done. So I was there working probably about 4 hours in, first night, and this white Toyota Corolla comes up. We waxed it, did everything we were supposed to do, and the guy on the other side of the car painted his wheel wells black. And this was the first time I ever heard of painting wheel wells. So I brought out a can of white paint and painted the wheel wells white because the car was white. Looked really nice. Pulled the car out, one side's white, the other side's black. The manager comes out and asks me why I did it, and I said, I thought it looked good. And they said, you ought to find another job. You don't have attention to detail. So I thought, all right, detailing's not for me. So I walked down the street a little bit, and found another shop, and I applied. The guy said, hey, when can you start? And he said, start tomorrow. So again, he brought me in as a detailer, and I was just doing the front ends. All I had to do was wax the front end of the car and then lay a pinstripe down the side, adjust the tires, do the windows, and out the door it went. And I was doing well for about a week, and a guy in the back ended up quitting, and he was the guy that did all the wet sanding on the fresh paint. So there I was, 15. They moved me back to wet sanding, and that's what set my career to where I'm at today. which is pretty interesting. So I can say I got fired at my first detail job. And my second one I excelled at. I went to the military, got out, and I was confused. I took 6 months off. I wanted to go to college. I had all these plans like everybody else, and I couldn't figure out what to do with myself. I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to detail all this stuff, but I just couldn't figure it out. So I went back to my old employer, and he hired me back, and I got into detailing real heavily then. Started working my way up through different shops and dealerships. Eventually started a company called Presidential Details. That took off pretty well, as many people know. I had like 25 employees, pretty big shop. We were doing about 300 cars a week. Plus I had a second shop where I was doing some high-end stuff. And during that time, I was working with a lot of manufacturers, things like that, product development. I was this little guy, just trying to do my thing,
Yeah.
And it took off to my shop, and then I learned the product side. Me and my partner, Scott Ward, we started a company called Americana Car Care, and then we sold it. It's now Americana Global. And then we went out on a limb and just tried SB3. I really wanted to try something different. I wanted to push ourselves a little bit, and it really wasn't. SB3 wasn't developed to be what it is today. It was developed to just have some fun and just enjoy life. And today, I'm pretty blessed. We celebrated 5 years, my partner and I, Scott, which is where the SB3 comes from. His name, Scott, my name, Barry, and we started with 3 products 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so many people always ask that, and that's where it came from. Today, we have 30 products, 35 different SKUs.
Holy yeah.
Yeah, we're in 28 countries, I think, right now, 28 or 29. And it really, I think, me personally, I'm living my best life right now. I think I can honestly say that. And it's not a financial thing. It's just I'm happy.
Yeah,
That's good.
It's very few people, I think, in their life get to live a career the way I did and do pretty good at it, but yet put themselves in a position to where they can now give back to the industry that gave so much to them, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And I think that, things there, I think
I really, like, truthfully, I'm one of the few, I think, that actually enjoy what he does. I don't feel like I work anymore. I wake up, I come in here, I do what I do, we get stuff done. I go home, I'm a part of a couple different organizations outside of the detailing industry. 16 years marriage today.
Congrats! Happy anniversary!
That's nice.
Yeah. I never thought I'd be married, let alone find somebody that could put up with my shit for 16 years. You know what I mean? But it's just, it is. I hate to say it, but like, I'm living my best life right now. And it's weird because a lot of people are struggling with COVID, and I hear all these horror stories. Gas is going up and all this stuff. But to me, to be able to give back what I learned and to watch other people succeed off of, and you guys know this because you do the same thing, but it's, I can't describe it. I really can't. I can't. When somebody says, "Hey, Barry, guess what? I did this and this. I listened to you and it worked." To me, that is the most humbling experience you could have. For a guy like myself, I was always taught to seek humility. If you seek humility, life will come back to you. And that's what I try to do, often. And it's not always easy, but that's where I'm at. And it's just been one amazing career. And it's been because of a lot of other people, not myself,
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that's nice about getting a little older, is that you can reflect on those things. And I think it's a lot easier to be humble and be, seek that humility and things like that when you get older. Because a lot of times you watch the younger guys and you're like, man, that is so not the lane I want to be in, because it doesn't get you anywhere, right? And it's actually detrimental to your success. And I think we are a lot alike in that sense. Like when we watch somebody that uses our software and they add that third, fourth, fifth user, or they add a second shop, that's such a great feeling for us that we have part of that to help them grow. And I think that is that is true success, is watching other people succeed that you've helped out with. And again, like you said, it's not a financial thing. It's more of just a, we just celebrated, Jody and I both are just a little over 30 years of marriage. Both. I'm 32 and you're 33. We've been in business for 13 years. And, you look back at that and you're like, well, how did all that happen so fast? Because like 5 minutes ago, I was single. And, but
your wife doesn't
my
feel
wife
that
doesn't
way.
feel that way. She's
She
like,
feels
holy
all
crap.
32.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, man,
It's an interesting industry, watching the innovations. I mean, just watching coatings come up to play, and some of the innovations that I see coming around the corner. So let's talk about that. I mean, you've got all these products right now. Do you guys have a big R&D department? Are you researching some like the next level of detailing products, or?
I kind of am the R&D department. I hate to say that, but it's true. We as a company, one of the things that I always said to myself was, even though I have 50% of SB3, I never wanted to be the owner of SB3, if that makes sense. Do I own it? Yeah, I have 50%. My partner has 50%, but that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be the guy that is like the CEO or the typical CEO. For me, what I want to do is, if you call our 800 number, it comes to me. I tell all of our guys, if you have a problem, call me right away, text me. I'm available, and to this day, even when we had 5 guys in our network, and now it's expanded over probably 1,500, maybe, I'm guessing, on the low end, they still all call me, and it gets hectic at times, but it works. But I'm relatable to those guys. I know what they're doing. I know why they're doing it. I had the struggles. I've had the hardships. And to me, I look at it as like me trying to mentor these guys, realistically. So when you look at the R&D, it's me. My mind never shuts off. It never. That's the downside to Barry Theal, is my mind. It just doesn't shut off, especially in detail.
Yeah, a lot of us are like that. I think that are business owners in general, especially in the detailing industries. We're constantly going. I think there's a certain level of ADD that all of us have, where we see a new innovation and you're like, ooh, several months ago, I invented a product. It'll never get developed. But, Jody and I,
it's a good idea.
And for like 2.5 hours, I'm like, we could do this and we do this. And we went through the whole thing, and I called another guy that has products and talked to him about it.
And I'm still trying to get him to do it.
You're constantly thinking about new innovations and ways to make things better. But like you said, it's not because I look at it and I say it's because of somebody else, right? I'm like, okay, I can take what somebody else did and I can see a different idea that springboards off of that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think that's where we're getting with all the products, is because you see all these new technologies, and I say new, probably the last 10 years, some of the better emulsifying products that we see, stuff that literally grabs dirt and pulls it off the cars, as opposed to a soap and a scrub, right?
Yep.
And you go back to the days of nothing but a rotary and a wool sponge in a bucket, and it's so much faster and easier, and you get such a better product when you're done. But I think all of us, that we look at it and go, okay, what's next? What's the next product that's going to come out that's going to make it easier and faster for a detailer? So let's talk about your product line, because that's a lot of products to have on there. So kind of name off the top 3. If somebody was coming in and I was going to be an SB3 guy, what are the top 3 products, 3 to 5 products that you would say are the real shit when it comes to SB3? What's the stuff you need?
For us, it's usually in coatings. It would be our Alpha, which is our 5-year coating. We have a 3-year coating that released last year at SEMA. That has just been tremendous for us. We called it 33. And the reason we did that was because it's a 3-year coating, but most traditional coatings take roughly 4 to 7 days to fully cure after they're applied. This coating here, 33, literally 3 hours after it's applied, it can be washed.
Wow. So does it have a shorter flash time? I mean, do you have to wipe it off faster?
No, it's still, our coatings are all pretty easy. So we stuck with the same thing. However, there were some things we did with the solvents that just made it a little bit cure a little faster. And it really, for what we found was it was a market that was tough because there's a lot of guys who aren't big shops.
Mhm.
So you give them a coating, they do the car for the day, then they coat the car at night or the next morning, and then it ties up their shop the whole entire day waiting.
Yeah.
So now instead of having that day to work, and and they're booked up for months now, so instead of having that day to work, now the car's just sitting there doing nothing, tying up space. So we figured, hey, how can we change that? And I'm telling you, it's been amazing. It turned out to be one of our top selling products almost.
That's cool.
Yeah, then we have a product called Solo, which is a 1 year spray coating. It's an actual solvent based, not water based. Really, really nice product. That's selling well. It's so tough though for us because everything that we have right now is moving. Everything's selling, and I think a lot of that has to do with our relationship with our installers. It's, it's easy when like a big manufacturing company comes out, they have this product, they develop it, they test it, and say, here you go, but they have no consumer awareness with that.
Yeah.
What I do is it's common for me to go into our group, into our network, and say, hey guys, what do you need? What's missing in your lineup? What can we help you with? And not realistically, that's how a lot of our products are developed.
Yeah, which is the good way to do it because you're listening to the guys that are actually doing it. I mean, you
Yes.
have background in it, so that helps a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good things lining up here, right? You've done detailing, you've been in the trenches, but now you're also listening to your clients, which I think is the only way to do it. I mean, we have the same philosophy with our stuff. We wouldn't have half the stuff in the software if it wasn't for clients telling us what to build.
Yeah.
So I asked you this at the Southern Detailers Conference, but you guys stuff, it's a certification, right? This isn't like consumer grade. I'm not going to go buy your 3-year coating at Walmart and throw it on. You need to learn how to do this because it's professional grade products.
Correct. Yes, I have no intentions of ever wanting to deal with ceramic coatings and the consumer at all.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of companies that have both. I don't know how they pull it off. To me, it would drive me insane. Kudos to them for doing it and being able to do that. But for us, I know who our target audience is.
Yeah.
And the target audience is the professional. Anything after that really happened because of the growth of what we do, Like, for example, we started with coatings. Then we had phone calls, to our 800 number all the time where, hey, I just got my car coated. How do I maintain this? What products? And then I found myself literally saying, hey, listen, go here, go here, go here. And I thought, wait, I'm a business owner and I'm throwing money out and leaving it sit on the table. So how do we fix this? So we came up with the aftercare line. Me as a detailer, my sole passion is compounding, polishing, and machines and pads. A lot of people know that. It was a matter of time before we got into compounds and polishes. We did that. I went with machines. I tried to work with a few companies. Things didn't work out the way I wanted, so we brought our own machines in. It really, it's crazy. I feel like it never stops, if that makes sense. So, which is a blessing, but at the same time, it's not always that easy as what people think, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
no,
I think that is a
yeah.
big thing because I think one of the things is I'm listening to you and questions that Rod has had for you. It is difficult for a business owner, for an entrepreneurial minded person to shut down. It's like in our very nature to create. We're driven to go, all right, how do we solve a problem? How do we have impact? So my question for you is looking back, when you were a detailer and then making the transition to products, how have you overcome some of those challenges that have made you a good business owner?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because even today, I don't think of myself as a business owner. I look at myself as a detailer. I've dealt, me personally, some of the biggest challenge I think today that I face personally within like my own mindset, my own, doing what I do, is it was very hard to put the buffer down. If that makes sense. Even when I had a shop, I didn't really detail much. I ran the shop with my business partner, who was a manager of mine at the time. Um, but I still have a passion for detailing. And for me to walk away from that was one of the hardest things to accept in my life personally. And I still detail cars occasionally, but it's not like it was. It never will be like it was. But it's very hard to walk away from something you love to challenge yourself to do something that you want to do. So for me, it was putting down the buffer to give back to the industry. That the first move with that was I went and got my CD and SV, last year at Southern Detailers Conference. Then I got my RIT, now I'm doing, the RIT stuff, which has allowed me to give back to the industry, you know. Um, and for me, that was the hardest challenging part. Making the transition to sell products really wasn't difficult because when I talk to a detailer, and I'm sure you guys understand this, you start talking to somebody, it just continuously goes. It doesn't stop. I don't care what detailer I'm talking to, what person in the industry. You put us together in 2 rooms, we could probably talk for an hour and a half to 10 hours. Unless
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
said, hey,
Oh,
get out of here. It's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So making that transition, the for me, the hardest part was sitting in a desk like I am now and not being running a buffer or not looking down the side of a car thinking, man, that looks good, or there's a ding there, we got to pop that out. You know, that was my expertise. But luckily we have a good team at SB3. My weaknesses are complemented by Scott's strengths. My strengths cover his weaknesses. We're 2 peas in a pod. We're completely different people, but when we're together, we're very strong. Then we brought Derek in, who Derek has been amazing. We work with a lot of outside companies that have been huge to us. So it's really a team effort. It's not Barry Theal. It never will be Barry Theal anymore with SB3. SB3 is a huge team, a very small team, but huge in a weird way, of detailers who came together. And I really, really just try to say, be professional. I it's hard to explain, but I had an ego when I was younger. I made some money young. I got good at what I did. I had a lot of fun. Worked on some badass cars. The head got bigger over the years.
Yeah.
And for me, as I grew older, my head got smaller. And for me now, it's like somebody asked the other day about like what do I plan to do in the next 10 years, and honestly, I just keep doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm fortunate. That's but the
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
part was just putting that buffer down and saying
Yeah.
I can't detail no more, because now what I do daily reflects upon 1,500 people in our network and an entire industry surrounded by that. And
Yeah.
it's hard to realize that, like, no matter what we do, people are always watching.
Yeah.
Even if you can't see them, somebody's watching.
Yeah, I think that right there is a really important lesson for people. We get a lot of people that ask, like William was asking some business questions, and that to me is one of the keys for business owners is somebody is always watching you. And you're what you did 3 years ago is setting in motion what you're going to be able to do today.
Correct.
And I think that is one of those things that, it's funny because I've never talked to you about this, obviously, but I was involved with Mannheim as well. Years and years ago, I was hooked up with Dent Wizard and traveled around doing some hail damage stuff for a couple of seasons with them just to try to create software for Mannheim.
Yep.
And that's a different world. And I don't think people understand that whole auction, get it in, get it out, and how fast things turn. And it makes it sets you up. Right now, if you have a shop and you have 3 cars a day, you're like, oh man, that's not hard at all. Where other people coming into it that don't have that background are like, 3 cars, how are we going to get this done? And you're like, 3, you know. I mean, we have a guy we deal with that puts 140 cars a day through the detail bay in that environment, and it's people they can't even comprehend that. But it's like it's a totally different world. It works, but you're a different lane. It's not, you know, it's not about perfection. It's more production, you know.
Correct. Yeah. And it's actually, and you know what? When I was getting out of it, there were some dealers that I had that wanted the perfection that didn't mind paying, because again, things are changing and evolving,
Yeah.
and now the consumer's educated more than ever.
Yeah.
Way more than ever with the power of the internet. So when a consumer goes to buy a car, I feel bad for car salesmen these days, because these consumers know so much. Literally, the salesman's not ahead of the game no more. The consumer is.
Mhm.
And I was seeing that transition happen back in 15 and 16 with a lot of the dealers that were sending cars to Mannheim that wanted stuff done. And, you know, again, the problem that I always had was they wanted everything yesterday for nothing. And I got tired of it, you know.
Yeah.
If I was to do a detail shop today, I would keep it 1 or 2 people, a small shop, and focus on quality and just make a good living. You know?
Yeah. And I think that right there is another key point, is that I think there's so many people coming into this that are like, how can I get rich? And that is not how you start a business. You start a business to solve a problem.
Correct.
Yes, there's money involved. You can't ever put that aside. But if you're going into it trying to figure out how to get rich, you've already stepped on your own toe. It's like, first create a successful business, create a successful product, whatever it is you're doing, and then that money's going to follow. You know, you find yourself at a certain point where that slope starts to become a lot easier. It's like, oh wow, stuff's coming in the door and we're not even having to put that much effort into it. What did we do right? Well, you set it up as a business to start with, and you set it up successfully with the right attitude of helping people out and being there for them. And I think that's the key to it, right? It's making sure that if you're providing whatever you're providing, that you're doing a good job at it, and that it's helping them. It's not just a one-sided deal. Everything's a two-sided transaction, right? It's going to help you, but it's got to help them too. So
I think one of the challenges, kind of in wrap up here, is one, you know, how do you scale your business? You know, to William's question, you know, how did you build your brand and what challenges did you overcome? But I think a lot of small business owners, they struggle with the building, and then they get to a certain point where they have to actually step back and be business owners.
Correct.
Or like in your case, you had to step back. You had to not only step back, but you had to move into a completely different role that maybe wasn't your initial passion. It's become your new passion. And I think that is a challenge for business owners. So, and kind of wrap up, how have you dealt with that kind of evolution in your career?
For me, small steps, very small steps. You know, a lot of guys, they will put together, like, and I stress business plans hard, because I think a lot of detailers don't do them. But for me, I always looked at it was, I don't care 5 years from now. I'm not trying to make $10 million 5 years from now. I want to see a 10 to 15% improvement yearly is what I want to see. And for me, and you know, I'm going to go off a little bit because it kind of irks me about this industry, is there's so many people that come into this industry say, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million. I'm going to teach you how to scale your business. You know, you're going to have 5 shops, this, that, and everybody wants to be an influencer, you know, and the problem is half these guys don't even know how to influence, but they're dealing with an audience that's vulnerable. Our industry has a lot of young guys who are vulnerable, who are willing to listen to anybody. And you hear these guys say, you know, I'm going to make you $1 million. Listen to me. Follow my path. I never once did that.
Right.
Never once did I look at it that way. I looked at it as, okay, I'm here at this moment. In 6 months, what can we do that will take us to the next 6 months,
Yep.
to the next 6 months? And, you know, when I started, I was making 93, 545 an hour, I think. So I never came into a world where I had a lot of money to play with. I started my first shop on a $200 budget and tools that I built up working for other people over time. Um, but when I did that, it took time and it took patience. The same thing with SB3. We did the exact same thing. The first year we did it part time and we put our foot in the door. The second year I went full time and it took off. But the problem that I have is now everybody wants to go from making $10 to $1 million tomorrow.
Yep.
When they forget that before they started their business, they were probably making 25 or 30 grand. And if you run your business properly and you make 100 grand in revenue and you walk away with 50 grand by yourself, you just made $20,000 more than you did the last year.
Yeah.
And you're working for yourself. You have your own time, your own freedom. You enjoy life. I didn't become an entrepreneur for the money. I became an entrepreneur to enjoy my life. And it took me almost 30 years, 25, 30 years to begin to actually enjoy life. But over those years, I've been very successful as well, So if there's one hurdle that I would have, my hurdle was being patient.
Yeah.
I'm not a patient guy at all. I can be if I have to be, but realistically, Barry Theal's not patient. If Barry Theal wants something, he's going to go buy it or he's going to work his ass off till he gets it. Literally, it's funny. Like I was just talking to a guy earlier. He said we were talking about cars, and I bought my first car 6 years ago. My first brand new car. It was a Mercedes. It wasn't a high-end Mercedes. It was a Mercedes CLA. It was like 50 grand. I just now paid that car off and got the title yesterday. Ironically, my son's going to turn 16 in 9 months, and he loves this car. I can't wait to say, guess what, Jacob?
Yeah.
This car's yours,
That's cool.
Car that I ever bought that I wanted, I'm going to give to him. But here I am now. Now I'm driving a Porsche Panamera daily, but I didn't go out and buy a 22. I bought a 16. It's what I could afford, but I love the car,
That's awesome.
And that's how I kind of look at life. Like I'm not cheap. I'm not frugal at all. I enjoy spending money. I'm one of the few people in this life that I probably think a little differently. I don't care about generation wealth. I never had that. My parents never had it. What I care about is, what? We're only here so long.
Yeah.
What can I do while I'm here? The reality of it is 99% of the world's going to forget about me the day I'm 6 feet down.
Yep.
I want to make that impact now. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to do with my life. If I die with $5 million, what am I really going to do with it at the end of the day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm the last one, my son might get some money, but hopefully I've been a father that taught him how to do quality things his whole life instead of just getting them on, if that makes sense.
No, it makes totally a lot of sense.
And I think a lot of people need to think about it that way because, so many people are like, oh man, it's all about the wealth. It's all about the wealth. And you're like, why? Well, you're killing yourself. You're getting up at 3 a.m. You're working till 3 a.m. You're never sleeping. We have one client that was invoicing his customers at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing, Eric? He's like, well, I got to keep hustle. I got to keep the hustle. I'm like, you need to start watching different channels on YouTube because it isn't about all the hustle. If you're going to put yourself 6 feet under by the time you're 40, just get out and enjoy yourself, Yeah,
exactly. And that's, for me, I found now I used to look at things and be like, for example, this is a pen, it has SB3 on it. Some company sent us to it for free, whatever. They're trying to get our business, which they did a good job because here's the one we bought.
Yeah.
When I look at something like this, I want to say, you know what? I used to think, Barry, I want that to be a Mont Blanc, I want that $300 pen. I want the $500 shoes. But now when I look at life, I look at it completely different. Now I look at life and think experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I found that when I go out and I travel, like this weekend, I met you guys again this past week at Southern Detailers Conference, which was an awesome show, by the way. For anybody who missed it, I
You
think
missed it.
you missed it because our industry, if I've never seen our industry come together the way it did that quick at a show. There, it was awesome. I don't know how to say it. It's a growing show. The attendance was a little light, but it's still growing.
Yeah.
It's not going to have a million people today show up, but what you did have was a quality show. And
Yeah.
if you didn't have a quality show, I apologize, but that was an experience that I created in my life. I got to meet people, new people. I got to hang out with old friends, and we had a blast doing it. Last year I drove the country. I spent 2 weeks on the road, and I see Montana for the first time. It's you can have the $1 million shoes, but have you ever driven through Montana and seen the mountains on one side, the highest blue skies, the lakes, the crystal clear waters running down the road with you, driving through the desert at 120 miles an hour because there's no traffic anywhere,
Yep.
Right.
Those are the experiences that I love. And then, like one part, I got to go see Rennie last year on that trip of the Space Museum there in Seattle when they were working on Air Force One. And those are the experiences that I talk about. Like, I'm going to remember those for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Shoes, they're going to be gone in 4 months anyway. I'm so fat that I'm going to burn the souls out of them. But that's me today, man. I've grown a lot over the years. I've matured a lot over the years. Go back 15 years, I was a young, egotistical, cocky asshole. I hate to say it. Today, it's about giving back. It's about enjoying life.
Yeah.
I like I said, I got a great wife. My kids doing well. My intermediate family's doing well. My friends are always doing pretty good. My Masonic journey is just blowing up. Having fun with that, learning things. It's just it's an awesome time to be alive for Barry Theal.
That's awesome.
That is awesome, and I think that's important. So I really think that people need to get out, and that's one of the things I enjoy about those shows is talking to people and seeing the growth. I mean, again, one of the advantages of us not being 20 years old is that we can see that growth throughout the years of how people have, like, hey, that guy's doing really well. That's awesome that they're still out there. It's awesome they're still, out in the industry and doing stuff. So, Jody, anything else in wrap up for you?
I just really appreciate the conversation because conversation to me is emphasized on the journey. Yep. Right. And it is easy to trade, especially when you're younger in your business, to chase the dollar. I love that you're like emphasizing, I want the experience, because I remember as I was listening to you, I was thinking about years ago before we adopted our 2 kids. I was talking to my mom, and Judy and I were talking about taking the entire family to Hawaii. And I was like worried about the money. And I was talking to my mom. She's like, Jody, you will never, ever miss the money. You will always cherish the memories that you make. So make time for those memories. So thank you so much for taking the time. How do people connect with SB3?
SB3Coating.com is probably the easiest way. Or www. He's telling me to do something like this. So
down below,
it's right there.
Right down
SB3
below.
Right there. Yeah, they see it right there. SB3. Thanks, guys. You guys rock. I just seen that. I was so focused on trying to pay attention because if you see my setup, I have monitors way up here.
Yeah.
Down here, so it's always like I'm looking up, but it helps take away the fat off my chin.
My neck.
I need to do that. That's a good
so I have like one chin instead of like 6 when I'm like this. But no, in all seriousness, it's you go to SB3Coating.com. I always tell people you can if you can't find me, something's wrong. On the internet, there's multiple ways. But thanks for having me, guys. It's been a blessing and both an honor. I met you guys so many times over the years now. It's nice to actually be on the podcast. And I appreciate that. I really do.
Well, thank you. You've been on my list for a long time. We've tried to do a mix of the really influential people like you on the podcast, but also the younger people trying to figure out and have that balance of like, all right, we're over here and we're, oh man, how do I get to there? Right. And so it's been a great thing for us.
Moderation, man. It's not easy to do moderation. It's not really at all. Like, and that as a Freemason, that's one of the things that we really are taught. You know, when people look at our logo, I'll give you a little Masonic lesson before we go. When you look at the Masonic logo, there's a square, a compass, and then the letter G. Okay, the letter G, people always, it represents two things: God and geometry. Okay, but the square teaches us to square our actions by the square of virtue. And the compass teaches us to circumscribe our desires and keep them within due bounds toward all mankind. So basically, if you take that compass, you become one point. Take the other point, you draw a circle around you. Don't go without that circle. Anything in the outer range of that circle, it's probably not healthy. You stay within that circle, you're within moderation, and you're living a pretty good life.
That's awesome.
That's
well,
awesome.
Thank you for sharing that, man. That it's good.
Good Masonic lesson for you.
Yeah,
No, and it's good because one of the things that I appreciate about your Facebook is you have the balance of showing your personal life and your business life. And I think that's important because I think a lot of times people go, I don't have time for this. You know, I'm working. And it really is about the experience of your family, of your personal journey of growth, of your business, you know, your personal faith, fitness, whatever it is, what that you got to have that balance. So thank you so much for taking the time, guys. Please go connect with Barry Theal. He is on Facebook. He's on Instagram, SB3Coatings.com. And of course, remember to like, share, and subscribe.
And we will see you guys next week with another guest.
See ya.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, man. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.